Sound of heavy silence, then a single heartbeat. They made her a servant in her own home, and she let them. For 3 years, she let them. Until the day she realized the only person she'd been betraying was herself. My name's Grandpa, and I've seen a lot in my 74 years. But this story, this one's special. This is about a woman named Eleanor who learned that sometimes the people who call you family are just waiting for you to die so they can fight over what's left. And sometimes you have to bury them before they bury you. When Eleanor opened that door, she never imagined her own daughter would be waiting like an executioner. But there she was. Jennifer stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, face twisted into something barely recognizable. Beside her, Mark paced like a caged animal, phone in hand, veins bulging in his neck. They didn't even let her close the door. "Have you lost your mind?" Jennifer shouted, advancing with fury in her eyes. "My husband nearly had a heart attack at the ATM." Her words bounced off walls filled with venom Eleanor knew too well. But this time it didn't hurt like before. Mark got closer, waving his phone in her face like a prosecutor presenting evidence. "Where's the money? Eleanor, what did you do?" His card was empty. Not a single dollar. His voice was a desperate roar, as if something that belonged to him by divine right had been stolen. Now, I gotta pause here and tell you something about Eleanor. She worked 42 years at a textile mill. Got up before sunrise, sacrificed her back, her knees, her youth. That $1,500 pension wasn't charity. It was blood money. Her blood. And these two vultures have been picking at her carcass while she was still breathing. Eleanor set her purse down on the entry table with a calm that surprised even her. Looked them both dead in the eye. "I changed my banking information. Now, my pension goes to a new card. One that only I control." You could have heard a mouse sneeze. Jennifer's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Mark's face cycled through colors like a bad traffic light. Red to white to purple. It was the face of a man watching his meal ticket get canceled. "What?" Jennifer finally stammered. "Mom, you can't do that. We depend on that money. We have expenses. Debts to pay." Eleanor felt something inside her harden like steel left out in winter. "Debts? You mean Mark's new car? The Florida vacation last month? That giant television you just had to have?" Mark stepped forward, finger pointing like a dagger. "You live in our house. You eat our food. It's the least you can do to contribute." Now, folks, this is what I call audacity with a capital A. This man had been unemployed for 3 years, living off his mother-in-law's pension, and he had the nerve to say our house like he'd paid for a single nail. Eleanor didn't flinch. She just smiled that smile women get when they've got you dead to rights. "Our house. That's funny, Mark. The deed still has my name and my late husband's on it. This house we bought brick by brick, sacrifice after sacrifice. You came here 3 years ago because you couldn't pay your rent. So let's be clear about whose house this is. Now let me take you back 3 years. To understand why Eleanor let this go on so long, you gotta understand grief. Her husband Richard dropped dead on a Tuesday morning. Watering roses just collapsed. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was gone. 45 years of marriage. 45 years of shared breakfasts, silly arguments, sweet reconciliations. Gone in the time it takes to boil an egg. The first months in that empty house were hell on earth. Every corner screamed his absence. His coffee mug in the cabinet. His slippers by the bed. His toothbrush she couldn't throw away for 6 months. She'd wake up at 3 a.m. expecting to find him in the kitchen reading the paper, and reality would hit her like a freight. You know the smile I'm talking about. The one that says, "I'm helping you," when it really means, "I'm helping myself to what's yours." Eleanor resisted for weeks. That house was her sanctuary, the place where she'd raised her daughter, where every wall held a memory. But loneliness weighs heavier than any suitcase. The nights were eternal. The silence so thick you could choke on it. So she went. Just for a while, she told herself. Just until she learned to be alone again. She packed 2 suitcases. Clothes, photos, the green shawl Richard gave her for their 20th anniversary. Closed the door of her house with a lump in her throat, promising to return soon. How naive. How blind. How human. The first few months were bearable. Jennifer worked at a boutique. Mark was looking for work after getting fired from some insurance company. Eleanor cooked, cleaned, helped around, made her feel useful, needed, like she was contributing while her heart healed. But things changed, subtle at first, like a pot slowly coming to boil. Mark needed $200 for a course. He'd pay her back next month. He never did. Jennifer needed $300 for a credit card. Emergency. She never saw that money either. See, here's the thing about people like Mark and Jennifer. They don't start by asking for your house. They start with small bites. Little nibbles you barely notice. A 20 here, a 50 there. By the time you realize you're being eaten, there's nothing left but bones. Then came the masterstroke. Mark set Eleanor down one day, all serious and concerned. Eleanor, I've been thinking. It would be easier if your pension went directly into our account. We can manage household expenses better. You don't have to worry about anything. Jennifer backed him up immediately. It's true, Mom. You're not good with numbers. Dad always handled the finances. We'll take care of you like he did. Now, I've heard some smooth talk in my day. Used car salesmen, politicians, televangelists. But this was artistry. They wrapped exploitation in concern and served it with a side of "we're helping you." Eleanor signed those papers with faith in her heart and blindness in her eyes. Gave him access to her card. Handed over control of her $1,500 a month. And that's when the mask slipped. Mark stopped looking for work entirely. Why bother when your mother-in-law's pension arrives like clockwork? He'd get up at noon, eat breakfast Eleanor prepared without a thank you, then park himself on the sofa for the rest of the day. Video games, sports, beer. The American dream, Mark style. Jennifer came home from work and locked herself in her room, chatting with friends about upcoming vacations. Vacations paid for by a woman who couldn't afford a new book. Eleanor became invisible, a ghost with a pulse. She cooked, cleaned, ironed, scrubbed. And at night, she'd lie in that tiny room at the back of the house, the room they'd given her, the size of a walk-in closet, and she'd cry in her pillow so no one would hear. One Friday night, she found a receipt on the kitchen table. Jennifer must have left it there by accident. $1,200 at a jewelry store. Mark had bought her a gold necklace. While Eleanor wore the same 3 dresses she'd brought from her house 3 years ago. While she denied herself medication for her arthritis because she didn't want to be a burden, something shifted that night. Not snapped. Shifted. Like a tectonic plate moving millimeters underground. She started paying attention. The new clothes. The expensive restaurants. The car Mark bought with his savings. It all fit together like a sick puzzle. She tried to talk to Jennifer once. "Honey, I've been thinking about going back to my house. Enough time has passed. I need to learn to live alone." Jennifer's eyes went cold. Colder than Eleanor had ever seen. "Go back to your house. Mom, don't be silly. That place is neglected. Besides, what if you get sick? Here you're safe. Here you're taken care of." But here's the thing about that conversation. In Jennifer's voice, there was no love. Only calculation. Only fear of losing her meal ticket. Eleanor heard it. For the first time, she really heard it. And that night, lying in her narrow bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, she made a decision. She needed to know exactly what was happening to her money. She needed the truth, even if it destroyed her. The next morning, Eleanor announced she needed to go to the bank. Personal business, documents to sign, inheritance stuff. She lied so naturally it scared her. Mark's eyes narrowed. The bank? I can go for you if you need something. No, just that one word. But there was something in her voice that made him back off. At the bank, a young woman named Sarah helped her. Kind eyes, no judgment. Eleanor asked for 3 years of statements. 3 years. Sarah printed page after page until a stack nearly 50 sheets thick sat on the counter. Eleanor sat in the waiting area and read, page by page, transaction by transaction. And with every page, her heart grew smaller, harder, colder. $500 at electronic stores, $800 at luxury restaurants, $1,000 at a jewelry store, $2,000 at a travel agency. Purchases and more purchases, luxuries and more luxuries, all paid for with her effort, her pain, her dignity. But the worst part wasn't the big expenses. The worst part was the small details that revealed the truth. $20 withdrawals at bars at 2 a.m., $50 at beauty salons every week, $150 on clothes every month. While Eleanor wore worn-out dresses and skipped her arthritis medication, they paraded around in new outfits and perfect nails. 3 years, $60,000. Gone. Sarah approached after an hour. Are you all right, ma'am? Can I get you some water? Only then did Eleanor realize tears were streaming down her face. I'm fine, she lied, but I need to know something. Can I change my banking information? Open a new account that only I control? Sarah's eyes lit up with understanding. She'd seen this before. Of course, ma'am. I can help you right now. An hour later, Eleanor walked out with a new account, a new card, and something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Real, fragile, terrifying hope. The next 5 days were the longest of her life. Every morning, she woke up wondering if today was the day. Every time she heard the mailman, her heart stopped. But she had to act normal. Had to keep being the submissive Eleanor they expected, the woman who didn't matter. Mark noticed something on the third day. You've been weird lately. Something wrong. His voice was accusatory, as if she had no right to her own thoughts. Just tired. Old age. She let her shoulders slump, her voice grow weaker. A role she played for 3 years. A few more days wouldn't kill her. On the 4th day, she almost got caught. She was cleaning their room. Something she did every week, even though it destroyed her back, when she saw an open envelope on the desk. A credit card statement. Balance. $15,000. Restaurants, trips, clothes, a month at the beach they'd taken last summer while she stayed home alone. She heard footsteps and barely got the envelope back in place before Mark walked in. What are you doing in here? Cleaning. Like every Thursday. Her hand shook, but her voice stayed steady. He stared at her for a long, uncomfortable moment, then left. On the 5th day, the card arrived. She ran to the mailbox with energy she hadn't felt in years. There it was. Official envelope from a bank. Her name only. Not Jennifer's. Not Mark's. Hers. She opened it with trembling fingers. The card was silver, shining in the sunlight. Her name engraved in elegant letters. Eleanor M. Ramirez. Not just a card, a key to a new life. She activated it immediately. Changed the PIN. Confirmed that next month's pension would arrive here, in her account, where no one else could touch it. That night, she sat on her bed and held the card. Under the lamplight, the woman in the reflection had wrinkles and gray hair and hands stained from years of work. But that woman had just taken the first real step toward freedom. The first of the month arrived like an executioner's knock. Mark went to the bank at 9 a.m. By 9:30, tires were screeching in the driveway. The door flew open so hard it hit the wall. Jennifer, wake up. Mark's voice was pure panic. The car doesn't work. No money. Nothing. Jennifer stumbled downstairs in her pajamas, hair disheveled, face pale. It can't be. Mom's pension always arrives on the 1st. Always. She called the bank. Her face went white. They say there's no mistake. The account is active, but no deposit this month. Mark turned on Eleanor with bloodshot eyes. What did you do, old woman? Eleanor took a breath. A long, deep breath that held 3 years of silence. There's no problem with my pension. It arrived right on time this morning. In my new account, the one only I control, you could hear a pin drop in the next county. Jennifer's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Mark's face cycled through colors again, red to purple to ashen white. You can't do that, Jennifer stammered. We depend on that money. We have expenses. Debts. Eleanor repeated. You mean the $15,000 credit card bill for vacations I wasn't invited to? The jewelry, the restaurants, the new car? She pulled the stack of bank statements from her purse and dropped them on the table. Thud. $60,000 worth of paper. 3 years, Jennifer. $60,000 of my pension. Money I earned with 42 years of work. And you want to talk about what I owe you? Mark stepped forward, fists clenched. You ungrateful old. Careful, Mark. Eleanor's voice was ice. I have every transaction documented. Every dollar you stole from my account without my permission. You want to talk about calling the police? Because elder abuse is a crime. And I have proof. He stopped. For the first time, real fear flickered in his eyes. The doorbell rang. Eleanor opened it to find a young woman with warm eyes and a familiar smile. For a moment, she didn't recognize her. Grandma, Chloe, her granddaughter, Jennifer's daughter from before Mark. The one who'd gone to college in another city 5 years ago and somehow disappeared from their lives. What are you doing here? I've been talking to Aunt Brenda, your friend from the old neighborhood. She told me you haven't visited in 3 years. I got worried. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. Grandma, what's been happening to you? For the first time since it all began, Eleanor broke down. She told Chloe everything. Every humiliation. Every stolen dollar. Every night, crying alone while they laughed in the living room. Chloe listened in silence, holding her grandmother's hands. When Eleanor finished, Chloe's face was stone. Mom always made excuses when I asked about you. Said you're tired, busy, didn't want visitors. I believed her. She stood up. Grandma, pack your things. You're coming with me. Jennifer appeared at the top of the stairs. Chloe, what are you? I know everything, Mom. Chloe's voice could have frozen the Mississippi. About the money. About how you treated Grandma. About how you turned her into your servant while you emptied her bank account. Mark stormed in. This is none of your business, girl. Elder abuse is a crime, Chloe said coldly. And I have witnesses. Bank statements. A grandmother willing to testify. You want to test which one of us the law believes? Eleanor watched her daughter and son-in-law crumble. Watched Jennifer's manipulative tears fail for the first time. Watched Mark's bluster deflate like a puncture balloon. And in that moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Power. Chloe turned to her. Grandma, this is your house. Your name on the deed. What do you want to do? Eleanor looked at Jennifer. At the baby she'd nursed, the toddler she'd taught to walk, the teenager whose tears she dried. Then she looked at the bank statements, at the proof of 3 years of betrayal. You have 2 weeks, she said quietly. Find jobs, pay rent, or find somewhere else to live. But my money is mine. My life is mine. And I am done being invisible. They left 2 weeks later, packed in the middle of the night like thieves, which I suppose they were. Left a note on the kitchen table. Hope you're happy alone. No signature. No would-be. Just that. Eleanor thought she'd feel empty. Devastated. Instead, she felt light. Free. For the first time in 3 years, the house was quiet. Not the oppressive silence of loneliness, but the peaceful quiet of home. Chloe visits every weekend now. They cook together, watch old movies, talk about everything and nothing. Brenda came back into her life too. No grudges, just open arms and years of friendship waiting to resume. Eleanor joined a book club, started painting watercolors. Nothing fancy, just small things that make her feel alive. Her pension is hers again. She buys what she needs, saves what she can, and for the first time in decades, she has a cushion. Security. Freedom. Jennifer called once. Needed $5,000. Emergency. Eleanor said no. Jennifer screamed, called her selfish, said Richard would be ashamed. Eleanor hung up and blocked the number. Not out of anger, out of self-preservation, because she finally understood something crucial. Love isn't setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Family isn't a license for exploitation. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices. 6 months later, Jennifer showed up again. Different this time. Softer. Mark was gone. Gambling debts, surprise, surprise. And she'd hit rock bottom. Lost the apartment. Working 2 jobs. Finally understanding what she'd done. She didn't ask for money. Just apologized. Real apology, not the manipulative kind. Eleanor listened. Didn't rush to forgive. Didn't pretend everything was fixed. But she left the door open. Cracked just a little. Because here's what Eleanor learned at 69 years old. The lesson that took her nearly 7 decades to figure out. You can love someone and still protect yourself. You can forgive without forgetting. And it is never, ever too late to reclaim your dignity. She tends Richard's roses now. The ones he was watering when he died. They bloom every spring, bright and stubborn, pushing through soil that should be too hard for anything to grow. Kind of like her. My grandmother used to say, the same people who walk all over you will cry when you stand up, because they'll miss the doormat. Eleanor finally stood up. And you know what? The view from up here is beautiful. This is Grandpa, reminding you, you are not a resource. You are not an ATM. You are not invisible. And it's never too late to take back what's yours.